Michelle Zatlyn grew up here in Prince Albert and graduated from Carlton 21 years ago. Today, she is a co-founder and COO of Cloudflare, a technology company based in San Francisco. Cloudflare helps make the internet faster, safer, and more reliable for websites and apps around the world. The company was selected by the Wall Street Journal as the most innovative internet technology company for 2 successive years and named a technology pioneer by the World Economic Forum. Before co-founding Cloudflare, Michelle worked at Google and Toshiba and launched 2 successful startups. Michelle has been recognized by several publications, including Women Who Rule Silicon Valley by Elle Magazine and a 40 Under 40 leader by San Francisco Business Times. Carlton graduates and guests, please join me in welcoming our 2018 guest speaker, Michelle Zatlyn.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Zatlyn, and I was sitting in your seats 21 years ago. Back then, I cheered for the Prince Albert Raiders and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Hopefully, just like many of you here, cheer for them today. I want to start by thanking Principal Kilmer, Ms. Shank, and all of you for having me here today. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about myself before I turn it to all of you. I grew up here in Prince Albert. I lived on Bliss Crescent for most of my life. I went to Holy Cross. My mom was a teacher at St. Mary's, and so while most of my grade school friends went there, I came to Carlton. Go Crusaders. I arrived in the halls of Carlton with very few friends. I started to get involved in some things that I like to do. I played soccer. I tried water polo. That lasted about 3 weeks. It was literally the hardest sport I've ever tried. I tried out for the volleyball team, mostly because the girls looked like they were having a lot of fun. Sadly, I didn't make the team. It was a setback. We'll come back to setbacks later, because if you've had them, you know how much they sting, and if you haven't had one yet, you will. I was drifting a bit when someone told me about the basketball tryouts. I hadn't played basketball in grade school, so it wasn't a natural thing for me to do, but I decided to go to the tryouts. And I wasn't very good. I wasn't very good at dribbling or passing, and I think maybe I made 1 out of every 10 shots that I tried. Although I wasn't very good, I stayed for the entire practice, and I kept trying. I would take another 10 shots, hoping to make 2 out of the 10. I looked at the other good dribblers at the practice and I tried to emulate them. Most importantly, I didn't beat myself up too much. I kept my chin up and I kept going. At the end of the tryouts, and as far as I remember, they were absolutely grueling, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make the team. But the coach, Nancy Dragon, who taught at Carlton for 22 years, and although she retired a few years ago, came back today. Hi, Nancy. She had different plans. Although I had no skill that day, Nancy wanted me on the basketball team. She saw somebody that was willing to work hard, keep practicing, and while I didn't know how to dribble, pass, or shoot yet, pretty essential skills to play basketball, she saw somebody that was hungry, ready to learn, and willing to do the hard work. Fast forward 3 years later, I was sitting in your seat on my graduation day, and by the time I had left Carlton, I had made a lot of good friends. I had fallen in love twice, I had played in the band, and I was the captain of our basketball team. I have very fond memories of my time at Carlton. Afterwards, I went to university at McGill and studied science. I really thought I wanted to be a doctor, but it turned out that wasn't true. I found my way into business and then eventually technology. And if the reason I wanted to be a doctor was I wanted to help people, I fell in love with technology because you can also help people at scale around the world. I've worked at small companies that you've never heard of and big companies like Google and Toshiba. I've worked in places where we were the winning and the best in the market, and I've worked in places where we were losing and the sky was falling. I've lived in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. And then another Nancy moment happened. I was drifting again, and I knew that feeling because I had it in the halls here in Carlton. I was doing well at work, but I wasn't satisfied. I felt a bit stuck, bored. I wasn't progressing as fast as I wanted. So I decided to apply to business school. You are all too young to think about business school, but in 6 to 10 years, some of you might think about it. And it's a process. You have to write essays. You have to write a test. You have to get letters of recommendations. It's not something you decide to do on a Saturday night and then do the next week. You have to be a little bit purposeful. So I was getting everything ready. I was at a cocktail party that my older sister was hosting, and I was telling one of her friends that I was applying to business school. And he said, "Oh, which ones?" So I listed the schools I was applying to, all in Canada. Then he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "Why aren't you applying to Harvard?" And I remember the blood rushing to my face and thinking, because it's Harvard and I'll never get in, I'm from Saskatchewan. But instead I said, well, Harvard's super competitive and I'm not sure I'm a good fit. He looked me in the eyes again and he said, yes, it's competitive, but if you don't put your name in the hat, it definitely will not get pulled, so apply. So while Nancy and this very pushy American are nothing alike, that day they both had pushed me. So I added Harvard Business School to the list of schools I applied to, and guess what? I got in. And I won't go through all of the details, and if you're interested, come find me afterwards. I'm happy to share more with you. But it was awesome. I loved it. I met incredible, smart, ambitious people. It opened my eyes to a much more international world that I had seen living in PA, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, and I learned a ton. So this was my first time living in the United States when I went to business school. And I was in Boston. And while so many things are the same, a couple things were very different than what I was used to. And I remember two things really standing out. First, people were really aggressive. Not aggressive where you're at, Little Red Park or on an acreage at a bush party and someone comes and punches you in the face. Not that sort of aggressive. More, they're at a restaurant and they saw a table they wanted and it was really busy and they'd be really direct until they got the table they wanted. Or if they didn't like the grade they got in a class, they'd go to the teacher or professor and push so next time they got a higher grade. It made me very uncomfortable. The second thing I realized is that people love to talk about themselves. They had no problem sharing why what they were doing was so great. They were very self-promotional. And being from Saskatchewan, not only was I very skeptical as whether they were as great as they were saying they were, but I also thought they were being rude. So here I was going at business school, and I had another Nancy moment. I didn't know what I was going to do after school or where I should live. And everyone else seemed like they knew exactly what they wanted and had a plan to get there. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and in that sort of environment, it can really make you second guess yourself and feel like an outsider. A classmate and I started to riff on some business ideas. He knew a bunch about internet security and how spammers and other thieves were doing bad things online. Just like back in my basketball days, my basketball tryout, I knew nothing about the industry, but I listened, I asked questions, and I was engaged. Long story short, Matthew, Lee, and I started a company called Cloudflare. 8 years later, we employ almost 800 people. We help over 8 million internet properties, so websites, apps, blogs, be fast, safe, and reliable around the world. Taylor Swift, she's a customer of ours. TaylorSwift.com uses Cloudflare so that when she releases a new tour date or you want to go get her latest album, that you guys have the best, as consumers, have the best experience possible. All Saints, Fitbit, Steve Madden, Uber, Warby Parker, brands that you might wear or know, they are all using Cloudflare. So customers, like all of us, make sure that their apps and websites for all of us are reliable. You get the point. We generate revenue, which is a good thing if you're running a business, and our mission is to help build a better internet. I'm our co-founder and COO, and it's been an incredible experience. I live in San Francisco, and I married a great Canadian guy from Toronto. Hi, Jamie. And we have two super cute kids together, 4 and 2 years old. I've since added Boston, New York, and San Francisco to the cities where I've lived. And just let this soak in for a minute. I started this company without any deep background on internet security. My 2 other co-founders knew a lot, but at the time, I really knew nothing. So one last thing before I turn it all to you. Cloudflare is a technology company, a tech startup. More specifically, I think of ourselves as an internet company. One thing that I've really come to appreciate is that the internet has massively broadened the range of careers there are. And there are really well-paying jobs in the industry. At Carlton, at McGill, and living in Canada, I didn't really get that. Last night I was in Saskatoon at Innovation Place, and I was with a bunch of entrepreneurs. There are really a lot of people working on interesting problems, and I believe that they are going to build a lot of big companies here in Saskatchewan. And most people haven't figured this out yet, which means that this is an opportunity for all of you. If this is a career that you're interested in, run to it fast because it's a great one. So let me turn it all to you. I tell you all of this about myself for inspiration for you in your next endeavors. Some of you loved high school, and some of you didn't. But guess what? A new chapter is beginning for each of you. You get to decide which parts of you want to bring to the next chapter. You have the opportunity to decide who you are going to be. I was talking to a friend about how I was coming here today, and she said that at her 20-year high school reunion, either everybody was exactly the same or completely different. You have that choice. Be curious, be willing to learn, try new things. You may be terrible at first, but if you keep going, soon you'll be better. Find people that believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Treat them well and say thank you. Setbacks are hard. They sting. They do not feel good. But now that I'm older, I have some perspective. And when I look at the best things that have happened to me in my life, they almost all came out of one of my low points. That time I didn't get the job I really wanted, or that time where I was living in New York City and I couldn't get work authorization for the US and I had to move back to Canada. Having to nurture a broken heart led me to a retirement party where I met my now husband. Thank God I had broken up with the other guy. Be a bit more American. While no one would ever describe me as aggressive or self-promotional, I am more assertive than I was before. I'm more willing to share some of the things that I have done, and that has served me well. When a Nancy comes along, be open to the opportunity. Throw your name in the hat. It could open a whole new door for you, and you don't even know what's behind there yet. And finally, while I am super envious of those people who knew exactly what they wanted to do since they were 10 years old, and then did everything perfectly to make it happen, the most important thing I've learned in life is that life is a collection of experiences. The more experiences you collect, the more fulfilled you will be as a person. So with that, class of 2018, as this experience at Carlton closes and a new experience opens, I wish you all the best. You are the next generation of leaders here in Prince Albert, in Saskatchewan, in Canada, and in the world. I hope each of you find the path you want and make it count. Thank you.